Today, we bring you the story of a raging maniac who kidnapped a boy from the street. A single mom, who chased the killer all the way into the city, encountered an unimaginable obstacle. After divorcing her ex-husband, Tom, Kaylee moved to the big city with her child to make ends meet and found a job as a waitress at a fast food restaurant. Kaylee had to endure the boss's criticisms and the customers' rudeness, yet she had to smile through life's trials and tribulations. The single mom had grown used to carrying all the burdens silently. When it was midnight, Kaylee was ready to take her son to the playground to relax. But little did she know that this seemingly ordinary outing would bring her a world of trouble. The wooden path on the way was helpful, allowing her to reach the playground in no time at all. Like a bird set free from a cage, Frank darted into the playground with joyful energy. Kaylee was lost in her hopes for a better future, but was quickly snapped back to reality by a phone call. Her ex-husband had filed a lawsuit, intending to take custody of Frank, and since Kaylee didn't have a stable job, this became the perfect opportunity for the other side. Kaylee couldn't help but curse her seemingly nice, easygoing ex-husband, who she knew was incapable of taking care of a child. Even if she was struggling, she would never give up her son. However, her ex-husband's lawyer said that the judge didn't care and would only consider who could provide a better life for the child. Kaylee wanted to say more, but her phone battery died, and she sighed as she put it down, turning back toward the playground. But Frank was nowhere to be found. Frank cherished his toys. Panic rose in Kaylee's chest as she realized something was wrong. Someone nearby told her to seek help at the guardhouse. Kaylee rushed to the guard post and saw the kidnapper leaving. Her knees buckled as her phone's battery drained completely. The trafficker, realizing he was being followed, sped off. Without a second thought, Kaylee jumped into her car and accelerated in pursuit. The trafficker didn't expect Kaylee to be so relentless and tried to shake her off, but Kaylee wouldn't give up. If she hadn't been worried about her son's injuries, she might have rammed the car. The trafficker was finally cornered, and the person in the back seat opened the trunk, tossing groceries out in an attempt to slow Kaylee down. Initially, this caused her trouble, but once she was prepared, the tactic no longer worked. Running out of options, the robber in the back seat threw out the spare tire. Kaylee quickly swerved to avoid it, but the car behind wasn't so lucky. It hit the tire, flipping over several times before coming to a halt. Unfortunately, the traffic report had stated that the road ahead was clear. Kaylee knew that the longer she delayed, the harder it would be to save her child. If the trafficker managed to change lanes, the situation would worsen. What Kaylee didn't realize was that the desperate trafficker had pulled out a knife and was holding it to Frank's neck, threatening her to stop the chase. Helpless, Kaylee followed their demands and switched to the other lane. Tears filled her eyes, but with anger boiling inside, she wondered where they would take her son, and what would happen to him. The uncertainty was unbearable. Frank could be sold into slavery in the mines, or even killed for his organs. These horrifying thoughts raced through Kaylee's mind, tearing at her fragile sanity. In the end, she decided that letting Frank be taken away wasn't an option. With determination, Kaylee hit the gas and caught up with the trafficker's car. This time, she didn't follow too closely, keeping her distance to see where they would go. Like a drowning person clinging to hope, Kaylee called the police. Before the police could fully respond, a motorcycle got crushed between two vehicles, and the situation became critical. Concerned for the officer's safety, Kaylee swerved to the side, but the trafficker kept ramming into her. Eventually, Kaylee's car was forced off the road. The two vehicles drove a long distance before they were forced to stop. The trafficker, Renfants, demanded a ransom of $10,000 from Kaylee in exchange for her child, promising to release him once the money was paid. To prevent Kaylee from returning to her car, the cunning trafficker released a skinny lizard into her vehicle. According to the agreement, they both had to go to the nearest bank to get the money. Kaylee underestimated the cruelty of the criminals, who not only intended to kidnap her child but also to kill her. As they passed through a tunnel, the large woman in the back seat moved in and knocked Kaylee unconscious with a few brutal punches. Taking control of the car, the woman tried to keep driving. Kaylee quickly regained consciousness and started wrestling with the heavyset woman, who still had control of the car. She slammed on the brakes and then accelerated suddenly, causing the woman to lose her balance. Using all her strength, Kaylee managed to push the woman out of the car. Dazed and confused, the large woman fell to the ground. Meanwhile, the trafficker up ahead kept moving, believing that his accomplice had been captured. He drove towards the hideout, unaware that Kaylee was following him from a distance. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized her fuel tank was almost empty. If the trafficker didn't stop soon, she might lose her last chance to rescue her child. Just then, Kaylee bumped into the car in front, tightening her grip on the steering wheel as the trafficker seemed to realize what was happening. He suddenly accelerated, trying to shake her off and make his escape. Kaylee was thrown from the car and immediately took off her jacket, as her disguise had been compromised. Poor Kaylee hadn't realized that the trafficker had opened the car door and thrown Frank out. If the trafficker had driven off, Kaylee didn't dare chase after him directly, so she slowed the car and watched as Renfance's vehicle sped away. Once that was done, Kaylee set off again, determined to find her son. Suddenly, she noticed smoke billowing from the road ahead, indicating a serious car accident. Intense anxiety gripped her heart, but she rushed forward without hesitation. Kaylee arrived at the accident site, where the trafficker's car was parked awkwardly in the middle of the road. She frantically called out her son's name and ran toward the wrecked car, ignoring the danger she was putting herself in. But to her relief, the car was empty, and there was no sign of her son. Kaylee immediately drove to the police station. At the station, a policewoman took down Kaylee's report and told her they would investigate, urging her to wait patiently. After considering her options, Kaylee decided to call her ex-husband, hoping he could help from the other side. As she was on the phone, she noticed the walls of the police station were covered with missing person notices. This made her question the effectiveness of the police. So many people hadn't been found. Realizing she couldn't solely rely on them, Kaylee ignored the policewoman's advice and drove off, heading in the direction where the trafficker might have fled. Soon, Kaylee spotted the trafficker's jacket, which had fallen from a park bench near a garbage can. It seemed like they were still in the area. Kaylee carefully watched her surroundings, not missing a single detail. Just then, a black sedan slowly drove past her. At first, she didn't think much of it, but as the car got closer, she recognized the driver. It was the cunning trafficker. Instead of fleeing, the trafficker rammed into Kaylee's car. After a fierce collision, Kaylee was unharmed, but the front of the trafficker's car flipped over. However, he didn't continue with the crash and swerved away, attempting to escape again. Kaylee, undeterred, continued her pursuit, determined to catch up with him. Kylie was desperately trying to escape, but with just her 2 legs, she couldn't keep up with the biker. She was forced to give up, but then a pickup truck pulled up behind her. Kylie quickly flagged it down and explained the situation, hoping the driver would help her. The driver, an older man, told Kylie that there was a dead-end road ahead and that the trafficker wouldn't be able to escape. However, while they were talking, the trafficker had already turned around and crashed into the truck with a loud bang. Kylie felt the world spinning around her before everything went black, and she fainted. When she came to, she found the driver slumped over the steering wheel. Kylie moved a little and felt sore all over, but fortunately, she wasn't seriously hurt. Just then, she saw a gun slowly being raised, pointing at the window. She quickly ducked as a loud bang shattered the window, and the bullet grazed the top of her head. Panicked, Kylie scrambled into the back of the pickup truck, but the trafficker wasn't giving up. He fired another shot in her direction, but luckily, the truck was sturdy enough to protect her. The trafficker tried to fire a cash gun at Kylie's head, but she grabbed the barrel and pulled it into the car, with half of the trafficker's body still hanging outside. Kylie managed to start the truck and drove down a steep hill. The thick, overgrown trees scraped the trafficker so badly that he was tossed out of the car, hitting the ground hard. By the on him, but it didn't have an address. She used the vehicle's navigation system to search nearby, realizing the target location was less than 2 kilometers away. As night fell, the truck was no longer usable, but Kylie pushed through her exhaustion and headed toward the trafficker's house. When she arrived, she saw the lights were still on. Carefully, she crept toward the house and noticed the trafficker's wife talking on the phone outside, likely negotiating with someone about selling children. After a few moments, the woman stepped back inside the house. Kylie used the opportunity to sneak up, quietly grabbed the phone the woman had left behind, and called the police. She quickly hung up and watched as the trafficker's wife returned, completely unaware of what was happening. Inside, the woman placed her husband's gun on the dining table, the same gun Kylie had thrown away during her escape. After carefully searching the house, Kaylee found her son, Frank, along with 2 other girls hidden in a partitioned section of the room. With Kaylee's encouragement, Frank bravely jumped down to her, but the other 2 girls were too scared to move without her guidance. At that moment, the fat husband returned. Hearing noise from the direction of the warehouse, he rushed towards it with his vicious dog. Kaylee had no choice but to abandon the rescue of the 2 girls and focus on saving Frank. Grabbing her son's hand, they ran out of the house. When they reached a small wooden pier, they noticed a small boat docked beside it. Kaylee knew that the fat husband was armed, and it was too late to row the boat away. In a moment of desperation, she instructed Frank to help her push the boat away from the house. They quickly hid themselves beneath the planks of the pier. Just as they managed to hide, the fat husband, along with his aggressive dog, appeared on the pier. He raised his gun and began firing at the boat. The shooting only occurred because Kaylee hadn't rowed away, otherwise the situation could have been much worse. Realizing the fat lady was busy reloading bullets, Kaylee instructed her son to hide on the other side of the bridge, while she quietly slipped under the water. Moments later, the keen dog found Frank hiding beneath the bridge, barking furiously. The fat lady leaned down to investigate, but Kaylee seized the moment. Bursting from the water, she knocked the woman off balance and into the water. Even as gunfire rang out, Kaylee managed to retreat to the warehouse with her son, aiming to rescue the 2 girls. Just then, a strange man entered, claiming to be a neighbor of the couple. Kaylee explained the situation, but the neighbor's reaction seemed odd. He claimed to have no idea the couple was involved in such crimes. Then Kaylee noticed a loophole in his words, though she hadn't mentioned how many children were inside. The man already knew their gender and number. Realizing he was in league with the traffickers, the man reached for a gun behind his back. But Kaylee, prepared for this, struck him down with a shovel before he could act. Soon after, the police arrived in large numbers, and Kaylee, with the children safely by her side, waited outside. The police honored Kaylee for her bravery and perseverance, awarding her the title of Heroic Mother. The movie, Kidnapped, directed by Luis Prieto and released in 2017, concludes here. The film's structure is clear and gripping, with each scene packed with tension and every twist timed perfectly. From the moment Frank is abducted, his mother Kaylee relentlessly chases after him. The director beautifully portrays a mother's love in vivid cinematic storytelling, showcasing the unyielding strength and grandeur of maternal devotion. The director delivers not only a visual and mental feast but also dives deep into the complexity of the human heart through this intense and thrilling drama. What are your thoughts on this gripping and powerful story? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section below. Thank you so much for your continued support. We'll catch you next time. See you again soon.